My friends, good evening. An absolutely extraordinary post today on the official Twitter account of Russian Vice President Medvedev. Here's what he said. He said this about Macron, and incidentally, he also said this about Merz, the German chancellor whom he accuses of wanting revenge. That is, he tells him, you still haven't gotten over the defeat in World War II. Do you want revenge? We're going to take care of you. And actually, what he says about Macron and Merz, he says we'll recognize them by their teeth. That's a way of saying there won't be much left of them, and we'll need dental records to confirm it's really them. So, what's the situation he's moving towards? Well, it's a situation of increasingly serious tension, knowing this continent has already experienced 2 world wars. So, talking about a third world war in Europe is not insignificant, is not something unique. I mean, if the third world war happens, it would become a European tradition afterwards. So at that point, we can imagine that there would be a fourth or fifth, and then Europe, joyfully, every few decades, would launch itself into a bloodbath. I'll just give you a number that might help you grasp the seriousness of the situation. Let's imagine that the Second World War didn't happen in 1945, but that we had wars in Europe, annual wars. We had a war in Europe every year, and then these wars collectively reach or maintain the average death toll of the Second World War, which, remember, in my hypothesis, did not happen. Well, there are 80 million deaths. During the global desire, it's been 80 years since the end of the Second World War. Roughly speaking, you could say that it would have taken 1 million deaths per year since 1945 to reach the death toll of the Second World War and maintain the average death rate per war. In Europe, just a way to tell you that Europe is an extremely unstable region. All right, it's a very dangerous region. It's a region that can give the impression of stability for a certain period of time. After a while, it returns to war. So the difference compared to other places is that these aren't conflicts that are plotted or triggered, right? Or desired by Europeans who are generally civilized and peaceful. So these aren't people who are naturally or culturally inclined toward war, but rather it's their elites. They have elites who have this thirst to regularly start major conflicts because indeed it allows certain people to get rich. Quite simply, war is a business. War is not about the reasons they'll give you. It's about the reasons or causes they'll tell you. Those are just reasons for you to help you die, but those aren't the real reasons. The real reasons are something else. We make money, all of that. We get rich, we control the market and everything. And generally, well, that's the real outcome. That's the outcome. Let's say the most interesting one, actually. So the question a lot of people are asking is, will there be a third world war in Europe? Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to know, but what is it? I can answer this question that I get quite regularly, by the way, on WhatsApp, which I often share. So here's what I can tell you. If you look today, there are 3 countries leading in terms of willingness to go to war in Europe. They're easy to list. Everyone knows them as the ones who bark the most. We have Macron's France. We have the United Kingdom. I don't really want to say the United Kingdom. With Starmer, yes, Starmer was a warmonger, but so were those who came before him. So there hasn't been any change in tone. Maybe Starmer is even a bit more radical than the others. That's not even defensible. Someone could argue the opposite and probably be right. So the United Kingdom wants to go to this war. And of course, we have Germany. So these 3 countries in what? Well, what the 3 are heading towards is a collapse, the United Kingdom. The army is not operational. Yes, they can still send a helicopter with 6 guys in it and then smear themselves with shoe polish, go do a commando operation. Yes, they could do that. But in itself, that's not a third world war. It's a skirmish and an operation, a battle. Or we attach to them underneath, but that's not in itself the third world wars. For the third world wars, if you look at 39-45, it was preceded by massive armament, by the training of soldiers. People were whipped into a frenzy. When it started, you had gear and people. Now you have neither. That's it, Seuss. In terms of equipment, I mean, there's no one. And in terms of people, too, right? France is the same. France outsourced everything, sold everything. It doesn't make its own weapons anymore or anything at all. So today, what is France? It's a country that can fight for 3 days. Sue, what do we do on the fourth morning? Do we run away? Germany is the same. Germany is a country that's slipping into austerity, that's slipping into a disastrous economic situation because the Americans cut off its cheap energy. You should know one thing. I'll talk to you about it in another video if you want. The United States has always controlled and regulated the European economy. How? By injecting or restricting energy, because the European economy, like any other economy, actually is universal. That's it. Either you inject energy into it, making it easier to access energy, it will work well and start producing wealth. Otherwise, you limit the energy either through bans like the sanctions against Russia, like the explosion, the sabotage of Nord Stream. And then also, it can be, how should I put it? It can be completely ideological. You can push them to say, okay, for climate reasons, carbon, stuff like that. It depends. In each country, they call it differently, right? In the United Kingdom, it's net zero. In other countries, they call it something else. But in the end, they're hiding their submission, aren't they? They hide their submission behind these stories of climate goals, while in reality, they don't have the right to access energy. Kennedy, for example, blocked Europe's access to Soviet bloc energy. He said no. He even forbade it. There was the ban PIF where he banned large diameter pipes. He forbade selling them to the Soviet bloc. Why? Because he didn't want them to be able to set up a network. Wasn't it towards the countries of Western Europe? He didn't want Western Europe to access cheap energy and pressured them. In 1963, he pushed it to turn to Middle Eastern oil. And then in 1973, 10 years later, he was dead, but 10 years later, Europe woke up with a hangover because of the oil crash. You see what I mean? So I'm just giving you this story from a long time ago. And Nord Stream, that's more recent. The United States has long regulated Europe's economy with energy restrictions. Just a reminder. So the situation is that these three countries are all on the verge of economic collapse. And on top of that, they are led by leaders who are not particularly charismatic. I don't know. I'm just asking you the question. You can answer me in the comments. If tomorrow Macron declares the Third World War, would you follow him? I mean, would you rush in behind him? Are you going to say, okay, Macron told me to go, so I'm going? I don't know a single guy who would do that, really. I don't know a single person who would do that. And I can tell you, it's the same in the United Kingdom. Well, there will always be 2 or 3 hotheads, that's for sure. There will always be 2 or 3 hotheads who will go. But you don't start a Third World War with 2 or 3 hotheads. So all this just to say, will there be a Third World War or not? I have the feeling that there will be a collapse more than anything else. I have the feeling that there will be a collapse. That means I have the feeling that things are going to go from bad to worse economically. Because a war doesn't need to be hot for us to suffer the damage. Take inflation today, for example. That's its source. Because the energy cost today, when you have a cost, when you have energy that's very expensive, because we have to bring liquefied natural gas ships from the United States and so on. It's very expensive, so this cost is included in the energy that's used for everything. So obviously that's going to create inflation, isn't it? So there's already inflation. A lot of businesses have closed and many people have lost their jobs. See what I mean? That's the impact of war. Take the United Kingdom, for example. That usually means it's deindustrializing. Honestly, for such rapid and harsh deindustrialization, you'd have to bomb it. You'd say, well, there's no bombing, there are no missiles falling, right? Despite all that, deindustrialization persists. Every day there are companies shutting down. Every day you see it in the news. This company will close, this store will shut 12 branches, this bank will close accounts, this school is closed, and so on. So do you see what I mean? It's equivalent to a bombing, even if there's no bombing, there are no missiles, but it's equivalent. War causes harm even without fighting. Just discussing it already brings suffering. And with today's verbal escalation, it's like, where's it going? He said that Macron will recognize him by his teeth. It's true that this is something that's going in the wrong direction. There you go. That was just the answer to the question. Thank you for listening to this video up to this point, and I'll see you in the next one. It's something that's going in the wrong direction. There you go. That was just the answer to the question. Thank you for listening to this video up to this point, and I'll see you in the next one.